The rain hadn't stopped for hours. Thick drops rolled down the marble columns at the gate of the sprawling Kingston estate, a mansion that stood like a monument to power and pride. The man behind the gates, Ethan Kingston, a billionaire who had built his empire from inherited wealth and calculated charm, wasn't the type to notice the weather. But tonight, even he couldn't ignore the figure standing beyond the shimmering iron fence. She stood there, soaked to the bone, a worn coat clinging to her shoulders. Her hair, twisted and heavy with rain, framed a face that was tired but unbroken. In her arms, she held something wrapped tightly in a thin blanket, something small, fragile, and trembling. Ethan stepped closer, his irritation sharp. "Security!" he barked into the intercom. "Why is there someone at my gate at this hour?" The guard's voice came back, uncertain. "Sir, she says she needs to speak with you, urgently." Ethan scoffed. "Let me guess, another charity case? Tell her to leave before I call the police." But then, through the static, came a woman's voice, steady but trembling slightly. "Mr. Kingston, please, it's about her." Her. The word froze him. He frowned, pressing the button again. "What did you say?" The woman lifted her chin, meeting the camera's lens with weary eyes. "It's about Marissa." The name hit him like thunder. Marissa, his late wife, gone 3 years now after a sudden illness that had left him hollow inside. He hadn't heard that name spoken by a stranger in years. Ethan hesitated. Then, with a heavy sigh, he buzzed the gate open. "Bring her in, but tell her to make it quick." The gate groaned as it opened, the storm winds cutting through the space between them. The woman stepped forward, clutching the bundle tighter. Ethan watched her approach, every step she took seeming to echo across the wet cobblestone driveway. When she reached him, she didn't bow, didn't beg. She just stood there cold, shivering, her eyes full of a pain that even wealth couldn't dismiss. "You said it was about my wife," Ethan said sharply. "Explain yourself." The woman nodded slowly. "My name is Naomi. I didn't come here for money, sir. I came because you deserve to know." He crossed his arms, his tone harsh. "Know what? That you've mistaken me for someone gullible?" Naomi took a shaky breath and unwrapped part of the blanket. Inside was a baby barely a few months old, with soft curls and deep brown skin that glowed like polished chestnut even in the dim light. Ethan blinked, stepping back instinctively. The baby let out a soft whimper, its tiny hand reaching toward him. "This child," Naomi whispered, her voice breaking. "This is Marissa's daughter." Ethan froze. The sound of the rain disappeared. His breath caught in his throat as he stared at the child, unable to process what he'd just heard. "That's impossible," he finally said, his voice quieter now, uncertain. She couldn't have had a child. The doctor said—" "I know what they said," Naomi interrupted gently, "but she didn't tell you everything. She couldn't. I was her nurse for the last 7 months of her life. She was afraid, Mr. Kingston, afraid of what you'd do if you knew." He blinked, his composure cracking. "Afraid of me? That's absurd." "Marissa and I loved each other," Naomi finished softly. "Yes, but you also controlled everything around her, her doctors, her visitors, even her mail. She wanted to tell you, but she said you wouldn't believe her, that you'd think she'd betrayed you." Ethan's jaw tightened. The words stung, but somewhere deep inside, they struck a familiar chord. There had been moments, fights, silences, nights when Marissa cried quietly in their bedroom while he retreated to his office, drowning guilt in work and whiskey. Still, the idea that she'd had a child without telling him, it made his stomach twist. He glanced down again at the baby. The small face was peaceful now, eyes closed, lips forming the faintest pout. Something about the shape of the nose, the curl of the hair. "Why bring her here?" he asked, his tone lower now. "If this were true, if this were Marissa's child, why wait so long?" Naomi's eyes filled with tears. "Because I didn't know how to find you, and because after Marissa passed, things got difficult. Her last wish was for me to protect her daughter, but I couldn't give her the life she deserves, And when the bills started piling up, Ethan raised a hand. So this is about money then? Naomi flinched, shaking her head. No, please, it's not like that. I came because she's yours, Mr. Kingston. Look at her. Don't you see it? He hesitated. His throat was tight, and his thoughts swirled in disbelief. The storm outside thundered, as if echoing the chaos within him. Naomi stepped forward, her voice trembling but determined. Marissa loved you until her last breath. She wanted you to have a piece of her. That's what this baby is, a part of her heart left behind. For a moment, Ethan said nothing. He just stared at Naomi, his reflection visible in the rain pooling on the marble floor. Then he whispered, a part of her heart. His voice cracked. The sound of it made Naomi lower her gaze. The baby stirred again, letting out a soft cry that pierced the heavy silence. Ethan swallowed hard. You're asking me to believe you. Based on nothing but a story. Naomi nodded slowly. Then take a test. Do whatever you need to do. But please don't turn us away tonight. She's sick, and I have nowhere else to go. That last line broke him. Ethan looked at the tiny child again. Her breathing was shallow, her skin slightly pale. A flicker of something old, buried, and painful moved in his chest. He sighed heavily, his pride collapsing like wet paper. Fine, you can stay, just until morning. Then I'll have my lawyer contact you. Naomi nodded gratefully, tears mixing with the rain still dripping from her hair. Thank you, Mr. Kingston. Thank you. He turned, motioning for her to follow him toward the grand front doors. The estate, once silent and cold, seemed to breathe again as the gates closed behind them. Inside, the marble floors gleamed under chandelier light. Ethan handed his coat to a maid who stared in shock at the drenched woman and child. Prepare a room, he said curtly, and get a doctor here, tonight. As Naomi followed, she glanced back at him, at the man who had first mocked her, who now seemed lost inside his own house. For the first time since Marissa's death, a piece of something alive flickered in his eyes. And though neither of them knew it yet, the night had already changed everything. The house was quiet now. The storm had passed, leaving behind the faint sound of dripping rain and the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Ethan stood by the window of his study, staring out at the wet garden. He couldn't shake the image of the woman and her child, the way Naomi's hands trembled as she held the baby, the way that tiny face seemed familiar. He rubbed his temples, exhaustion pulling at him. It had been hours since he'd let them in. The doctor had come and gone, confirming the child had only a fever, nothing serious, but Ethan hadn't been able to sleep since. He told himself it was because he hated being deceived, but the truth was, it was because for the first time in years, he wasn't sure who he was anymore. A soft knock broke the silence. Naomi stepped inside, wearing one of the housekeeper's borrowed sweaters. Her eyes were tired, but gentler now. She's sleeping, she said quietly. Thank you for letting us stay. Ethan didn't answer right away. He turned, studying her face. You said Marissa didn't tell me because she was afraid of me. Why? Naomi hesitated, her eyes glistening. Because you were changing, sir. You'd become distant. Cold. She said the man she loved was disappearing into the walls of this house. She wanted to tell you about the pregnancy, but you stopped listening before she could. Her voice trembled, but she didn't look away. The day before she died, she wrote you a letter. I think it's time you saw it. Naomi reached into her small purse and pulled out a folded, worn envelope. Ethan's heart stuttered as he saw his name in Marissa's handwriting, soft, looping, familiar. His hand shook as he opened it. The letter was simple. My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't tell you in time. Please don't be angry. I wanted to protect the only thing that made me feel alive again. Her name is Hope. She's your daughter. I wanted her to know the version of you that I fell in love with, the man who laughed freely, who believed kindness wasn't weakness. I hope one day you'll be that man again. For her. With all my love, Marissa. The words blurred as tears filled Ethan's eyes. He pressed the letter to his chest, unable to breathe. Hope. That was the baby's name. Naomi watched quietly as his shoulders trembled. "She believed you'd find your way back," she whispered. "That's why she made me promise to bring hope here when the time was right." He looked up, his voice barely a whisper. "She trusted me. After everything?" Naomi nodded softly. "She never stopped." Ethan turned toward the doorway, where the sound of a baby's faint whimper drifted from down the hall. He walked slowly, the letter still in his hand. Naomi followed silently. In the guest room, the baby stirred under the soft glow of a night lamp. Ethan approached, his eyes tender now, not with doubt or pride, but something else. He bent down, brushing a trembling finger against her tiny hand. She gripped it instantly, as if she'd been waiting all along. He exhaled shakily. "Hi, Hope," he whispered. "I'm your dad." The baby's hand tightened, and something inside him, something long dead, came back to life. Naomi smiled faintly, tears sliding down her cheeks. Marissa would have been proud. Ethan nodded, unable to speak. For years, he had built walls so tall, even love couldn't climb them. But tonight, those walls finally broke. And as dawn's first light crept across the marble floors of the Kingston estate, the house once cold and hollow felt like home again.